Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth, study of truth, and mythology means a science of fake or study of fake, lie, or imagination. We have always said it again and again, but mythology is being continuously spread and built every day in the academic institutions of US and the Western world, especially related to ancient history of the whole world, including South America, India, and those narratives are constantly being peddled, written, and taught. So I have a very, very special guest who speaks his mind. So don't mind his words because he speaks his mind. And he's known for speaking and shooting from the hip, they say. The shooting from the hip comes from when you're not careful about your weapon. It's called shooting from the hip. You sit down on your weapon, it shoots. But this person has done a lot of research. He has been a PhD scholar, and he teaches research in various people, various forums, and he is according to himself, he has quoted shlokas. He is well read in the Indian dharmic traditions also. So we all have to keep an open mind and listen. And today we are talking about the independence. What does Indian independence, 75th Indian Independence Day mean for us, for India? And for us, I'm not an Indian citizen, so I cannot say for us, but generally accepted, what does independence mean? Without delay, let us welcome my very good friend and a very jolly friend, which is a British phrase, Abhijit Iyer Mitra.
Very well, and thanks for having me on.
Abhijit, what does independence today mean for India and also Indian independence for the world, according to you?
A lot of things. For India, it was best summed up by Nehru. I know most people hate Nehru, but, where we redeem a pledge to ourselves, not in full measure, but substantially, like he said in his, midnight speech on the cusp of the 14th and 15th of August. So we've come a long way. There's still a very, very, very long way to go. We're in a much better off position than where we started, but we're also in a much tougher position where we started. It's different problems now. So it's all up. It's generally a good thing. For the world, what it means is, it's two things. On one hand, for the doctrinaire folks, it's something to celebrate that, a pre-industrial third world country can still remain a democracy and be a vibrant democracy at that. And on the other, it is also a warning as to what happens to democracies when they democratize before they industrialize. Because that is your classic formula of a democracy gone wrong that can't get itself up out of the misery of poverty, because you've created a representation before institutions, which is never a smart idea. So all up, in both cases, what it means for India and what it means for the world is a mixed message. You can take what you want, you can discard what you
want. It's very ironical. On Indian Independence Day, we are seeing reports of Taliban taking over Kabul. It's also
you could think about it as Afghan Independence Day in that sense, because Karzai and Ghani were blithering idiots. They had no roots in Afghanistan. They were jackasses who were parachuted in from abroad, corrupt jackasses at that. What did you expect was going to happen? And this is why, I stress the anthropological lesson. I mean, tell me, at what level, the Brits actually never wanted to kill Hitler during the Second World War, even though they had several opportunities to, because the entire German high command was, they were pumping themselves full of heroin. And they were making so many mistakes that the British actually felt that the German high command was trying to help them out. The entire the whole of Hitler's cabinet were, injecting themselves with drugs. So I have to ask, how many people in the US administration were injecting themselves with drugs? Because for America to come into a pre-industrial third world country and try to build something around the rule of law, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, you need to have been snorting some next level cocaine mixed with crystal meth or something like that to get these ideas into your head. Now, this is the rule in software, you'd know better. Garbage in, garbage out. Ego. That's what you had. It was a rotten garbage policy to begin with. It ended the way it, I guess, was destined to. Um, the Taliban, on the other hand, remember, they are not fighting against a foreigner. With all my interactions with the Taliban, they didn't have an issue with the foreigner part of it. What they had an issue with was a disconnected, cruel, nasty government sitting out of Afghanistan that provided them with nothing, that did nothing to improve their lives, and in most cases was skimming off and exercised no control over regional governors who were completely rapacious and rapine in what they took from these villages.
Many people, and I would quote, because I don't have direct access like you have, but many people quote that Afghanistan is being supported by China and Pakistan. We all know Taliban is supported by them, but I do not know that. So what is your view on that they are being supported?
Look, whatever has happened in the last few days has not happened because of either China or Pakistan. Let us be clear about this. In some cases, we've done satellite passes over the same location within the space of about 2 hours, and in very rare cases, even in about 20 minutes and things like that, because different companies had tasked satellites to take images. In certain cases, we found that the Afghan army, they weren't even waiting for the defeat to happen. They would start firing, the firing would stop in 20 minutes, and then they would just run. In the case of Abdul Rashid Dostum, who was very good when he was a Soviet appointed general, he fought for something like 3-4 hours. His tanks were not destroyed. His armored personnel carriers were not destroyed. His infantry combat vehicles were not destroyed. They just abandoned them and ran. So, it wasn't even an attempt to hold fort. It just collapsed. Understand, the Taliban did not win this fighting. The Taliban is filling a vacuum where Afghan troops and Afghan leaders are running. Right. So it's, we can blame this on China and Pakistan, but it had nothing to do with weaponry. It had to do with morale.
So the entire, sorry, I cut you off. You were saying something.
No, that's it.
Yeah. So you made a very important point, because this is what I am also seeing right now. So all this media news about Taliban, against Taliban, and questioning American military training to Afghan forces, is that all just a propaganda, or it is something real on the ground, or they were never meant to fight with anyone?
But clearly they were never meant to fight with anyone, because had they been, they had been, when I was there in 2019, they had been acquitting themselves quite well. The Taliban would come and capture something, and they would fight back and take it back from them. This time, they're not even fighting back. It's a human factor here. This is why it is not guns and machines that win wars. It is the people who fight with those guns and in those machines who win wars. And here it was a case of personnel collapse. It is not a case of equipment collapse in that sense. So it's sad, but it is what it is.
All Indian investments are now...
Indian investments, let's be clear about one thing. These were not commercial investments. It was aid that was meant to help the Afghan people, and all those agricultural products and projects and dam projects, they will continue to help the Afghan people. Okay, so there has been no change in that. If anything, all the Afghans know who helped them with their agriculture. All the Afghans know who helped them with their dams, and they remain grateful for it. But for that gratitude to mean that somehow they were meant to support a government whose governors were rapacious and nasty and things like that, no. Are they making a mistake going in for the Taliban, which will be just as rapacious? Maybe they are. But remember, the Taliban provides some sense of local justice better than the Afghan government does. So it's, again, let's not talk about investments as if it was a commercial investment. This was never a for-profit investment.
That's very interesting to put the perspective like that. And in the 75th Independence Day of India, the growth which India has achieved vis-a-vis Pakistan and other places, and there was a plan to announce to $1 trillion, almost $1.4 trillion investment in Indian infrastructure was announced, which was long overdue. Do you think that will again create more, because Pakistan, we all know, is a jealous state today. It's no longer bitter. It's bitter in any case. It's a self-axed. They have axed their own feet by focusing on deterring India from development than anything else. Do you think that's your viewpoint also, or do you think something else?
Pakistan has already received enough blowback for its terrorism support policies because, when you are more focused on bringing somebody else down rather than doing well for yourself, this is what happens to you. They have done the same with Afghanistan, and they're going to pay the price for it. The ricochet of this is going to be first and foremost felt by Pakistan. Right? Let's be clear about that. Pakistan today is just as much of a danger zone as Afghanistan is. The elite literally live in barricaded fortresses in Islamabad and things like that. So this is what is going to happen to Pakistan, if not now, then in a few years' time. Best of luck to them. Between the devil and the deep sea, they chose the devil. Now they're going to get their comeuppance. Good for them.
Indian Foreign Office is very closely observing, and American Foreign State Department is just neutral right now. They don't want to say anything. They just sent troops to evacuate their own citizens they knew. So do you think the Americans already knew their military advances, and they were also not happy with Ghani because they did not go ahead with that? They thought that Ghani will not be able to rule.
Well, who foisted Ghani? They rigged the election to install Ghani. Abdullah, we all know Abdullah won that election. They literally rigged the election so that this idiot would be installed because he was one of those NGO types that they love so much. You come and you schmooze, you know how to hold your glass of champagne in New York. They all get very impressed by you. You look at half the board members, the editorial board members of the New York Times, they won't have the bloody competence to sweep and swab a floor, leave alone run a country. Their only worth is that they're trust fund brats who can hold their caviar on toast and their champagne with the right number of fingers and put it into their mouth the right way. So there's this belief that, somehow if they are able to be a good interlocutor, they're a good president or a good administrator, which they're clearly not. Ghani was an inept clown from day one. Everybody knew he was an inept clown. Everybody knew who rigged the election to help him come to power. It's paying the price for bad choices like that.
And everybody knows I'm a student of Mahabharata. There is a very interesting shloka in a Bhima Parva of Mahabharata, which says India, Aryavrat, the land they mention is between Himalaya and Vindhyachal. They said India is protected on the north by Himalaya, and the Yaksh and Rakshas rule in the Tibetan region. That's a shloka which says that. But on the west, so do you think on the west, it will be protected in the future? So do you think, like, according to me, if I look from the lens of Mahabharata, that Pakistan is a nice buffer zone for India? It is absorbing all the pressures of the Midwest.
Far from it. The threat to India isn't going to come from China. It's going to come from Pakistan. Because remember, Pakistan and Afghanistan are becoming Syria. Okay? And that destabilizes everybody around them. So far from it, it's quite the reverse.
So the Tehreek, most of the Taliban generals, they live in Pakistan most of the times, and their leadership. And the in Pakistani military generals, I was hearing some shows, and they were saying that Pakistani generals openly claim that they trained Taliban. Taliban is theirs, and there is a TTP in Pakistan also. So, do you think that the Taliban and TTP are going to create a Pashtun independence movement in Pakistan?
It's almost inevitable. It is almost inevitable because what is going to happen is that the Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan, sometimes they will shoot at Pakistani forces, sometimes they became Afghan Taliban and shoot at Afghan forces. These people are impossible to control. So it is going to, like I said right in the beginning, Pakistan is going to be the first country it's going to ricochet back on. Pakistan will only hope that it is able to prevent them from, exercising their irredentist claims across the Durand line. In all possibility, because this second incarnation of the Taliban, they deliberately siloized it to see to it that there was no unity. That is the one that is going to get them now. Because it is precisely the lack of unity which will mean that more and more people will be indisciplined and come and attack Pakistanis now that the Kabul government is gone.
So within Pakistan, there are multiple issues because of bad governance, and POK, Gilgit-Baltistan, Sindhu Desh, and Balochistan, and Pashtuns, which live majority in Karachi now, many of them in Karachi. Do you think that will destabilize and balkanize Pakistan? Will it be good for India, or India is ready for that?
India is never ready for anything. But, look, Pakistan is already in a state of perpetual siege. Don't forget that. Like I said, the elite live in fortifications and things like that are as good as what you get in Kabul. So this is Pakistan, its internal coherence is just lost. They'll go along with it, but we shouldn't, just because their internal coherence is lost, don't write them off, because they will continue to get more and more and more dangerous, because the greater the internal strife, the more the need for an external enemy to divert away from that internal strife and unify. So there's we need to worry, because the more you see these things refract back onto Pakistan, the more they will want to reflect it onto India.
Abhijit, one question comes to the mind. Like many people, they say that the Taliban fighters are the best and everything. And it has already been said in many places by misinformed analysts, I would say, that they underestimate the Indian Army's resolve to fight. One thing is there, Indian Army has never lost in straight fights, but they have always cowed down to political negotiations. They have lost in the political table, not on the military ground. So do you think that there will be a time which can come if Taliban overruns Pakistan, or there is an internal strife, they might send all these people to Kashmir?
So first of all, the transfer to Kashmir will happen very quickly, because Pakistan will not want to deal with these Taliban fighters, right? So instead of letting them first loose in Pakistan, they will transfer them immediately to Kashmir, number one. Number two, the Taliban are not going to take over Pakistan. Take it as a written guarantee for me. The Pakistani army will fight to the last Pakistani civilian to prevent the Taliban from taking over. So that is also not happening. But is Kashmir going to get affected? Yes, it is.
And just a hypothetical question, in the large heart
and let's not forget, India did lose very badly in 1962, which was a straight up war.
So that was even the Air Force was not allowed to use in 1962. That's what the reason we see. But this time is different, because we have seen what happened in Galwan. Indian Army.
No, Galwan again happened because you weren't allowed to fly drones and enforce certain things. You had to keep sending foot patrols.
True. I mean, you're right, because that we did not hear from anyone. Now, in the from the analyst, from the analysis point of view, the Taliban now has access to Western fighters, including Tucanos, T-29s, and other military hardware of Afghan army. Plus, I am seeing them. All the videos are coming out. They have access to Indian helicopters supplied to the Afghani Air Force. So, do you think those will be used in case, like, if it's all-out front war on the Durand line with Pakistan? And hypothetical
So
question. Yeah.
having control of the frame is different from having control of the aircraft. Okay, control of the aircraft is you know how to maintain it, you know how to arm it, you know how to fly it, and you know how to use it. Now, if you're telling me that goat herders who have won all these things without, we haven't noticed them use a single piece of heavy artillery or tanks even. What tanks they know how to drive, they know how to drive only very rudimentarily. They've not had any tactical training on them or anything like that. So they may have captured Tucanos. Can they fly those Tucanos? No. To date, there are only about 2-3 videos of the Taliban being able to fly Black Hawk helicopters that they captured. The Mi-24s, the Russian attack helicopters, which India gifted them, that they captured from air bases that they captured. If you notice, they don't even have their rotors attached to them.
That's right.
Right. Remember, each aircraft that they've captured has a very, very different maintenance requirement, maintenance schedules and procedures and things like that. They're not going to be able to use any of those right now. If they use, they will be used much later.
But they can always hire. I also heard reports that they have killed the pilots, also captured pilots. Some captured pilots.
They probably did. This is the same mistake the Iranian government made after the Khomeini took a hold of things, because the Imperial Iranian Air Force was the reserve of elitist officers and things like that. So they shot most of the flying corps and things like that. So and they paid a heavy price for it in the Iran-Iraq war.
So the Durand line, which they never accepted, and India should also not accept it, because 1919 Durand line was done without consultation with India. So Durand line, which they do not accept, that means that Taliban claims the whole Pakistani territory as their own, or they only want Balochistan and parts of the Fatah and other areas, which are
they want northern Balochistan. They want most of Fatah and a few parts of Punjab. Maybe even Gilgit-Baltistan, but that's what their claim is.
So India's position of taking back POK, which is Indian Parliament resolution, do you think that might happen with this disturbance, or this is now pushed back for years?
Look, that was a useless piece of rhetoric. I don't think we should even grace it with anything. The government doesn't have any wherewithal to take back a single square inch, so forget about it.
So in the case of 1959 and in the case of ever since Chinese have taken over most of the Indian territories, which are even gifted by Pakistan to them. So in future, will there be an Indian plan to take that back, or is it going to status quo and just...
There is no plan to take anything back. Okay, there is just speeches and rhetoric. There is never a plan to take anything back. They can't plan for these things. Fundamentally, because India does not have any of these. We do forget even planning about them. We don't even talk in private about taking any territory back. So not happening.
So one of the things which comes in the British armed forces, now they have also sent 600 troops. And British have a fairly good idea about Afghanistan. The terrain is very well documented with the British Armed Forces. And they work in a mercenary fashion. It's the largest volunteer mercenary force on the planet. That's what they claim, the British Armed Forces. So do you think that they will have more success in controlling than Americans had so far?
No, they'll do squat.
They lose? What is that?
They'll do squat. They can't do anything. 600 troops aren't going to change anything. Anyway, Kabul has fallen. It's finished. Ghani has left for Tajikistan. Amrullah Saleh is probably also left for Tajikistan. What's left? What are they going to control now?
Now, coming back to another question, which I think you can answer very well. On the strategic side, Afghanistan is known to have opium reserves, which Americans want, and the other aluminum and other elements which they have, like the uranium. So do you think that the China will get involved for that access?
Let's see. Let's see. It could China could get involved, but the question is how much security can the Taliban provide? That's always the big question. See, and what is the price they will extract? If they're really smart, I'm hoping they do that, because if they actually cut deals with the Chinese, uh, you will see a rise of Pashtun nationalism in Afghanistan, which will automatically set it on a collision course with Pakistan. Right now, the issue is Pakistan wants control of those resources. So it will do anything to prevent the Afghan government from independently negotiating with China and things like that, because Pakistan feels that Afghanistan's natural resources will turn Pakistan into a Saudi Arabia that can get rich. Because remember, even in Saudi Arabia, all the oil is in the Shia northeast regions, and the Shias there are treated like dirt. So they feel they can treat the Afghans like dirt, extract like the way they've treated the Baloch like dirt, extract and get rich off it and solve all their problems. Not going to happen. This is one of the classic cases where if China triumphs, Pakistan loses. If Pakistan triumphs, China loses.
So this Afghan situation, do you think it is a real threat to the world, or it is a real threat to only this part of the world?
It's definitely a threat to Kashmir. I don't think they will repeat the mistake of allowing people like Osama bin Laden out there anymore. But you never know. See, they came to almost a near war with Iran when they executed those 17 truck drivers in 1999 or early 2000 or something like that. Remember? So there is always the possibility that when you have a disaggregated leadership, like the Taliban does, some local commander will do something particularly precipitate, which will bring about some significant consequences.
No, that's very much understandable, because the problem right now we see right now is the nervousness everywhere. But we have not seen any statement from Indian Foreign Office. Maybe everyone is waiting and watching. And
look, I can tell you, nobody is waiting for anything from the Indian Foreign Ministry, and nobody is watching the Indian Foreign Ministry, because the Indian Foreign Ministry is completely irrelevant in this whole thing. India is irrelevant in this whole thing. So I can honestly tell you, nobody gives a squat about what India does or says anymore.
So will, just a hypothetical question I was asking last time, will India come to the rescue just to protect Kashmir? Will India proactively step in to help Pakistan here to control Taliban? Ever?
No, never. We're going to sit and salivate at the prospects of Pakistan blowing up. Remember, the last time also, it is precisely when the Taliban took over that Pakistan went from precipice to precipice to precipice in terms of internal violence. We're going to sit and enjoy the show.
And Pakistan will not do the same games which it did against Soviets and which they did against Americans too. They
Who are they going to play the game against now?
Exactly. I think
it's an Afghan government. I mean, the Taliban are all locals. They're local yokels.
So Nuristan area of Afghanistan, I've mentioned in my book also, even till date, they wait for the Indian troops to come. It is very well.
They don't actually. I've been there. The knowledge of India there is almost non-existent now.
Yeah, but I was seeing the stories which some of the Afghanis live here, and they were telling me Afghani Americans were saying that they are waiting one day to be liberated and join India. That's what
they really are not. They really are not. I think this propensity for yarn spinning is very great with all conflict societies, and that's exactly what it is. It's a yarn.
So maybe some of them are just trying to impress Indian Americans so that we can support them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, So now coming back to the American forces exit. It's very interesting that SEALs, Delta forces, all of them trained Afghani special forces. and they were brought into USA. I know very well. Many of the Afghani soldiers ran away from the bases to get asylum in America, and so they are still well trained over there. And it's so surprising that they nobody opposed anything. There was no tactical information. Did Americans train them in the wrong way, like the American way of fighting?
Well, look, there is the American way of fighting, which is quite effective, by the way. Here, it has to do much more with a moral collapse and backstabbing, even by the local governors. Because the moment the local governors were given free passage to go, the governors would abandon and run. Now, when your command structure abandons you and runs, what are you going to do? Abdul Rashid Dostum, like I said, he said he was landing in Mazar-e-Sharif to lead the fight. The bugger literally fought for like 3-4 hours, or at least troops under his command fought for 3-4 hours, and then he made a dash to the Uzbek border.
So literally, Taliban took over the entire Afghanistan on motorcycles. Literally.
Yeah, literally.
And its most surprising thing is, in American media, they're not playing. Neither CNN is playing, nor Fox News is playing. Nobody is playing.
Look, in the case of Fox News, they want to cover up the fact that they should have probably never gotten into Afghanistan. In the case of CNN, they're covering it up because nothing Biden does can be wrong for them. I literally read, if you go to my Twitter timeline, I tweeted it out. Yesterday, the headlines on Twitter was Kabul almost about to fall. And 2 headlines below that is Joe Biden forges ahead on Afghanistan where Obama and Trump failed. And I'm doing, how are you even coming up with this kind of shit? Like, I mean, seriously, I mean, the kind of drugs people seem to take in DC think tanks, multiply that by 5 times what CNN reporters or opinion writers seem to take. I mean, I know America has a drug problem. I just didn't realize it was so severe and across the entire so-called thought spectrum.
One of the things which is they're hiding is that the Taliban are driving their Humvees. I'm sure anyone who's buying Humvees. So when Taliban were buying that Toyota Tacoma,
no, that is old news. There's lots of images of them driving around Humvees and things like that. So there's nothing new about it.
They don't show in the American media at all. Mainstream media doesn't show anything. Not just Humvees, they're driving Oshkosh. They got hold of Oshkosh also. So which is the next version of Humvees they have. And the third thing, American media is not showing the Abraham tanks. Many Abraham tanks, they put over there 60 or 70 tanks.
I have not seen a single Abrams tank in that particular thing. I've seen a lot of old Russian equipment, but I've not seen them use a single Abrams tank. But like I said, they're not using heavy equipment at all.
They're literally motorcycles.
They have captured some heavy equipment here and there, but they're not using heavy equipment. It's just gunfire, mortar fire, and RPG fire. That's it.
And most of the times you will see that the Taliban fighters are fighting in the air. So they're not trying to kill anyone. They're just trying to press a warning shot. Is that clear?
And these guys are literally throwing up their hands in the air and running in the other direction.
Yeah. It's not even directed fire. And Afghani forces are also doing the same thing. So it looks like the whole thing was a staged match.
Well, I know for a fact it's not a staged match. But it's definitely, I think we still don't know why they collapsed so quickly. We know it's a morale issue, but we've still not pinpointed what specifically led to this kind of a collapse of morale.
This is a very remarkable story developing, and everyone is silent on this. Maybe the India is celebrating the Independence Day, so nobody is analyzing it. Maybe in 1 week or 2, more things will come out. The one last question on this one. I heard that the $1.5 billion is the income of Taliban. Is that a true information?
Look, there's no way of gauging it. We have absolutely no way of gauging it because we don't know When your primary business is extortion and extraction, it's a cash flow thing. So there's no way of gauging what they can or cannot raise. I've read some of these estimates, but they're all based on humbuggery. I mean, I've never seen anybody that's been able to give me a convincing methodology of how they raise a methodology of calculating. We know how they raise funds, how they extract money, but nobody's given us a clear methodology of estimating annual income.
So India on August 14 decided to have the Partition Horrors Day. I personally very much like it. What is your view on that?
It's good and it's dumb. I'll tell you why. It was good to have a Partition Remembrance Day. It was very dumb to call it Partition Horrors Day. Because why are you only remembering the horrors of partition? Also remember, it was a story of hope. Because, we exported our Muslim elites at that point of time were pure trash. We exported them out of the country, good riddance to bad rubbish. On the other hand, some of the most enterprising people who came into India were emigres, Sikh and Hindu emigres from Punjab. They came and they became extremely successful in India. One of them even two of them became prime ministers of India, I.K. Gujral and Manmohan Singh. So, we should be celebrating some parts of that partition as well. So, I mean, why call it when you say Holocaust Memorial Day or the Armenians have Martyrs Day, they remember all aspects of it. You don't have to only emphasize the negative aspects of it.
Because the next day we are celebrating the independence. So that way, one day, the according to the Pakistani Americans, I would say, because I meet them regularly here, they say, according to them, is that they are much more modern in their outlook than Indian Muslims, according to them. So what is your view on that in terms of modern outlook?
So who is more modern than Indian Muslims?
Pakistani Muslims.
No, that's not true. The elite Muslims of India and the elite Muslims of Pakistan tend to be extremely urbane and sophisticated and very easily slot into any high society do anywhere in the world. But that is a common function of all elites across the world. I'm sure Rwandan elites or I know the elites of Timbuktu, if Timbuktu had a billionaire, would just as easily slot into New York society as Pakistani or Indian Muslim elites would. As for the rest of them, it's a function of social class. I personally don't see any difference in the lot.
Thank you, Abhijit. It's always wonderful to speak with you, and you have fresh perspectives on all these issues. Plus, you have first-hand information. And I will not ask your sources, but if you want to say something on that, how do you obtain
No. We never talk sources.
There's a very famous movie in which they say Sutro ke anusar. So, anyway,
you're never going to hear the names of my sutras.
Thank you so
I don't know. I've lost contact with 2-3 of them. I'm praying for the best. I don't know. I've re-established contact with the people I knew in Herat, with the people I know in Mazari Sharif. Mazari Sharif never went offline. Kabul is worrying probably because there were more prominent people. They've gone underground or they've left. I don't know. They went exchanging messages with me, but no names. I am worried about them. I did offer my house to them. I said, if you can get yourself on a plane, you can come stay here with me indefinitely. I don't know what's happened to them.
Thank you, Abhijit. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. And those of you who love this video and Abhijit, do comment on it and let me know your feedback. Thank you. Namaste.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.